This is Michael Flynn, disgraced general for the U.S. Army. He was charged and sentenced for passing classified intelligence to adversarial nations. He was serving a sentence in prison until Trump pardoned him. Anyways, he's kind of a QAnon folk hero, so it came as a surprise to everybody when he came on this QAnon platform and basically tore this Q pastor a new one. This is part 3. If you haven't seen the others, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. In the last one, this Q pastor in the top right, Johnny Enlow, brought up QAnon, and Flynn basically told him it's nonsense.
You can answer.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know if we're live. Are we live?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah, we're live.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to just tell you, I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, I know what this whole Q thing is. I think it's just sheer nonsense.
It was crazy. So now he's going to double down on his assertion that it's nonsense, and the Q pastor is going to try to find some rationalization so he can continue loving this guy and not feel like his whole life was wasted on studying Q. Let's watch.
I want to talk about reality. I want to talk about reality, Johnny, okay? Not mythical or mysterious things that nobody has a clue who they are or what they are, and it's all a bunch of garbage.
But do you want to only motivate with fear, or is there any hope you have to motivate? Because that's my point. Is if to the people, to the patriots that are a little bit devastated and tired and have been awake for 2 or 3 years, they're doing everything they know how to do. You just want to tell them something else that they have no control over mega church pastors or what's going there. Do you have, as part of being a general, you want to tell them the truth? Is it like, no, I just have bad news. They can't control what the WEF is going to do. They can't control what's going on in the pulpits. Is there an added, it's not your primary message. That's why I know you're on assignment.
My God, this guy talks like nonstop. Johnny Enlow, he talks so much. Just get to the point already.
But
No, honestly, the dude's gotten to the point already. We know what he's asking. Why is he still going?
Have any encouragement for the Patriots of what could happen as they continue to wait if they do what they can do?
Yeah. So number one, don't believe the kind of garbage that's on the internet. Okay,
oh boy, he's talking about Johnny Enlow's beliefs right now.
It's out there. I mean, unless you can touch it, feel it, and it's going to impact your physical daily life in your existence and what you're doing.
This is really interesting to me. How do you convince your audience of people who basically believe in QAnon? How do you convince them to be wary of fake news when you are spreading fake news? Like, your whole system is built upon fake news, and your goal is to help them avoid fake news. Fascinating. I guess the goal is to convince them to avoid fake news unless it's coming from you. Believe everything that I say, but nothing that anybody else says. That's kind of the idea, I think. Fascinating, man.
Doing around your own community. One of the things that I used to tell young officers and young enlisted guys and gals was about controlling
guys and gals and non-binary pals, right?
Your destiny, controlling your own destiny. And there's things that you can control in your life, like you just said. There's the whole issue of what you do on a daily basis, where you spend your money, how you deal with your family, what church you decide to go to, what kind of things you want to give to. Then there's things that you cannot control. Most people aren't going to be able to control even what's happening at their county seat, although that's much more doable. It's much more controllable than what's happening at your state capital, or what's happening in Washington, D.C., or what's happening in Davos, Switzerland, under the auspices of the World Economic Forum.
All of this goes back to the conspiracy theory about the Great Reset, Davos and WEF and all of it. It's all just garbage conspiracy theory stuff. And also, somebody up a little bit in the chat mentioned the Great Awakening has been... The concept of the Great Awakening is nothing new. It just refers to any event of mass conversion to Christianity in the U.S. There have been 4 before. Thank you, Indecision 6326. Appreciate the super chat. Yeah, you're right. it's a common phrase used among Christians in general, but particularly among QAnoners. It's a really popular thing to say in the QAnon movement right now, not just in reference to mass conversions to Christianity, but to mass conversions to QAnon, because they have effectively worked QAnon and Christianity into the same type of belief system, basically. But yeah, you make a really good point there. It's not an uncommon phrase.
Which is essentially in the very late stages of creating this new world order. I mean, this is not just
Okay, let me step back. Let's listen one more time here.
Of the World Economic Forum, which is essentially in the very late stages of creating this new world order. I mean,
there is no new world order being formed out by the World Economic Forum or any of that garbage. All they said was that they wanted to kind of reset economies in countries to try to be more fair to the lower or middle classes. And this is an opportunity because the economies are in such a shakeup right now from COVID. This is like 2 years ago when they brought this up. Like, oh my God, people, get over it.
This is not just beginning. These are not just things. These people have been at it for a while. They just now they're actually in our face doing it. They are creating. They are actually.
No. People in the background saying, yeah. No. Are you serious, people?
Actually not creating. They're fulfilling in their minds the idea of what the new world order will be, what they've always talked about it to be. So people can't control that. Grassroots America can't control that. So control what you can, and then take positive action. One of the things about, because you mentioned it earlier when I jumped on you about this Q nonsense.
Ooh, boy, this is, again, it's getting interesting. I just want to write it down before he gets into it. 38:45. Hold on. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, let's keep listening here.
And take positive action. One of the things about, because you mentioned it earlier when I jumped on you about, this Q nonsense, the plan, right?
And Johnny Enlow is smiling and maybe chuckling a little bit because at least Flynn is acknowledging that he was a dick about it. Is he apologizing for that? Of course not. No, he's not apologizing for being a dick. He's just acknowledging that he was one. But Johnny Enlow is looking for any scraps he can take because it was such an awkward, tough situation. He effectively views this guy as a religious leader because QAnon is like a religion to him, Johnny Enlow. And his religious leader, one of the deities or priests in this religion, attacked him and called him an idiot. I can't imagine that felt good. And honestly, Flynn is terrible. He shouldn't have done that. But Enlow is looking for any opportunity he can find to feel better about the situation.
I mean, plans, I don't know what, I've heard that so often. I'm like, man, if there was a plan, if there were white hats and all this other garbage, you think that our country would be in the state of that it's in right now if there was something positive happening, Johnny? No, it would not be. So this is not about fear. This is about action, because it's the opposite of fear. It's being fearless. And I want people to be fearless. I want people to be fearless and understand that in life there's far worse things to do in life than serving or dying for one's country. I mean, that piece you showed up front, Steve, about Korea, the Korean War. My father fought in the Korean War. He fought in the European theater in World.
Wow, he's old. My grandpa fought in the Korean War. And when he came back, he used a lot of really derogatory slurs against people. I guess they're not really slurs anymore. But, I guess I probably shouldn't say them. But my grandpa used to wander around casually calling people GOOKs or like Japs, for example. He'd call them Japs and stuff. It was like insane, dude. Just casually, wandering around, just saying whatever. Oh my God, like deeply, deeply racist stuff. I guess that's just what the world was like back then. Of course, my grandpa was like a die-hard Trump supporter eventually, too. Poor fool. God, he suckered a lot of people, didn't he? Trump did. Just checking through. Oh, free breather still in the chat. Let's see. Why did Obama fly in $65,000 of hot dogs from Chicago? What are you talking about? Oh my God, dude. Free breather in the chat coming at us with more conspiracies and nonsense. What the hell are you talking about? And who cares, even if that were true? Maybe it is. Who cares? Why does anybody care? Dude's rich. Why did he bring in $65,000 worth of hot dogs? So that Obama himself personally could sit there and nom them himself. So that he could sit in front of poor children who have nothing and eat them right in front of them. No, he brought in $65,000 worth of hot dogs so he could share with people, so that he could feed people around him. Why the fuck do you think Obama would fly in $65,000 worth of hot dogs? So that he could eat them in front of poor children, of course. Is that even true? I don't know. Probably not. It always feels so weird watching the far right choosing one of their own to sacrifice so they can keep believing whatever they want, right? Exactly. Particularly when it comes to QAnon. Like, they'll sacrifice anybody, anything and anybody to further their goals, to reinforce the belief that QAnon is real or whatever. Like Ray Epps, for example. I think we were talking about Ray Epps earlier. They were willing to throw the dude under the bus with practically no reason behind it. And Donald Trump does that a lot too. That's tax money. Was it tax money or was it Obama's money? And how do you know? And also, I'm totally okay with Obama as the president spending some tax money to do this thing or that thing or whatever else. I have no problem with any of that. What I do have a problem with is Obama using it to enrich himself the way that Trump did when he stayed at his own resorts with Secret Service and charged them more than usual, charged the government more than he would have otherwise. I have a problem with that. If everything is honest, if he's doing everything above board and in an honest way, I have no issue with it, really. Probably try to be a little more careful and conservative or whatever. But when you're doing it dishonestly and underhandedly, the way that Trump did, taking advantage of the fact that he owned expensive resorts and then charging, even more than usual for that, I have a problem. I don't really care that Obama, bought a bunch of hot dogs. That's stimulating the economy. I couldn't possibly care less, honestly.
World War II as well.
Wow.
He's deceased now, and so when I think about where people are at, there is a hopelessness that does emanate from our society, because, and the reason why is because the other side, the adversarial relationship that we have with a very, very small group. That transgenders in this country are less than 3%.
Yeah. It's a very small percentage of people who are trans. And that is why it is so ridiculous that they believe that, they're taking over the world or the country. They're trying to blah, blah, blah. It's all completely made up. It's all fear-mongering nonsense. Just like we saw in the 1980s with the Satanic Panic. Everybody was afraid that Satanists were taking over, and there were congressional hearings on rock bands putting secret messages in their songs where if you play it backwards, then it plays a message from Satan or some other bullshit. It was all fear-mongering nonsense from the very beginning, back all the way in the 80s. And it's still fear-mongering nonsense. To this day, the trans panic is fear-mongering nonsense. It's attacking and scapegoating a minority group simply because you want somebody to blame for all of your problems. It's disgusting.
Yet we all are supposed to believe that everybody wants transgenderism, right? But it's less than 3%.
God, this guy is absolutely on point. He knows exactly what's up, apparently. He knows that this is all scapegoating bullshit, seemingly.
Transgenders in this country are less than 3%. Yet we all are supposed to believe that everybody wants transgenderism, right? But it's less than 3%. We're supposed to be this big racist country against African Americans. We got, I think it's 12.8 or 13% of the country is African American.
13%. Yeah, that's right. And I don't think that this is like a big racist country against the black community. I think that there is a systemic problem of racism. Now, you don't have to have any single racist actor anywhere along the line to have racist outcomes. That's the point. That's what systemic racism is. Not one person along the way has to be doing something that is racist to end up with a racist outcome. For whatever reason, like whatever reason that may be. There may not be a reason at all that brought us to the point where we have a racist outcome. But we should still attempt to resolve the problem so that we don't have that racist outcome anymore. We should still try to fix it. Like, you know, people get like offended as though they are being targeted. They are being called racist. Nobody has to be racist for this system to have a racist outcome. You can have, you know, all the black friends in the world and it doesn't matter. This country isn't necessarily racist, but it has racist outcomes.
You know, and I mean, we're all a bunch of racists. We just had a president for 2 terms who was a African-American president. I mean,
again, people don't have to be racist to get racist outcomes. And also, that doesn't mean that there is no racism in the United States. It means that over 50% of the people want to deal with racism and get rid of it, basically. That's what that means. There are still actually a lot of deeply racist people, in all seriousness, in the U.S. Deeply racist. People that hate Obama solely because he's black and no other reason. There are a lot of people out there like that.
And so people need to stop and really take a deep breath. And this gets to being fearless instead of being filled with fear and filled with, oh my God, you know, because Americans aren't like that. You know, what is in the fabric of the American DNA is a desire to be independent, a desire to be free. And that's the one thing that this adversarial body of people, particularly.
Yeah, who is they? Who's he talking about when he says they? Usually when people refer to some ambiguous, amorphous authority known as they, they're usually referring to the Jews, the puppet masters at the top that are pulling the strings.
Those that are occupying the White House right now and own the levers of power in Washington, D.C., they want us to fear them. And I don't fear them.
Okay, nobody wants anybody to fear anybody. What is he even talking about?
In fact, the one thing that I do know is they fear what they cannot control. Yeah. And that's always the thing on the battlefield too, is when your enemy, you know, when your enemy doesn't think that he's got some measure of control over your ability to maneuver, right? Or your ability to speak or your ability to do the things, all within the legal parameters of our Constitution, right? The very first right that we have is the First Amendment, the very first part of the.
Yeah, the first sentence in the First Amendment is Congress shall make no laws establishing a religion, basically. No church, state-church separation is what it's all about. That's the first sentence. We want a separation between church and state.
The First Amendment is freedom to basically practice our faith the way we want it. Because it has a...
No, that's different. That's a separate thing. The first sentence in the First Amendment is Congress will not make any laws establishing a state church, basically.
It has, peaceably assembly, freedom to speak, but it's the very first part of that is the freedom to practice our faith. And they hate that. They do not want us to practice our faith. And to practice.
I don't care if you practice your faith. Go nuts, dude. Do your thing. Have fun. Enjoy yourself. I have no issue with that. The real problem is that they want to force everybody around them to practice the same faith as them. And if you don't, then you are infringing on their religious rights. There's this idea of your right to swing your fist ends at the tip of my nose. You can swing your fist anywhere you want, except for right here. Because The moment you swing your fist right here at my nose, it's no longer a protection of your rights, or it doesn't fall within your rights. It's a violation of my rights. Your rights extend up to where my rights begin and no further, right? People like Flynn and Johnny Enlow and all the people on screen right here have an obsession with the idea that they have a right to force you to do this thing or that thing, or to believe the way that they believe. They have a right to integrate their religious beliefs into the government and force people to worship the way that they do. And if you try to stop them from doing so, you are violating their religious right to practice their faith the way they want. Part of practicing their faith is forcing the people around them to practice their faith also, and they're trying to use that as a bludgeon against everybody around them. That's the idea. It's like punching somebody in the face and saying they're hurting my fist with their face. That's basically what they're doing right now.
Practice it the way we want to practice it, and to say what we want to say, and to keep our churches open. You're going to see here when in these coming months, you're going to see another attempt to lock down, to lock us down. We should not.
What? Okay, first of all, the United States never had a federal, organized lockdown. There were some states that had lockdowns, temporary lockdowns. You were still allowed to go outside. It was just businesses had to be careful about how many people they had in at any given moment and things like that. There was no federal lockdown in the United States. Never. But he's the victim, and he's going to conspiracy theory as he does. So here we sit listening to more conspiracy theories. Okay, let's write this one down. 4220. Okay, in the next couple months, there's going to be a lockdown, according to Flynn. So I've written it down. In a couple of months, if there's no lockdown, hell, let's say in a year, in the next 12 months, if there's no COVID lockdown, can we call this guy a fraud? I mean, I've been calling him a fraud this whole time anyways. Is it justified in 12 months? Can we officially say that he's just talking out his ass? He has no idea what's going on. He's just lying, and he has been the entire time. I feel comfortable saying that.
Comply with that. And churches are going to be the place where they're going to come after first, and they're going to go after blue states, that they currently control with governors and states legislatures and stuff like that. And honestly, politically, who actually is out there fighting? That's in a key political position. We really only have one governor, and that's Ron DeSantis, who's had made some very positive recent statements about.
I'm actually really interested by the fact that Flynn seems to be endorsing DeSantis or speaking highly of him right now, because DeSantis and Trump have a war between them at this immediate moment, and it's only a matter of time before this war goes nuclear. It's only a matter of time before Trump and DeSantis, flat out have a bitch fest between them, basically, where they're fighting. In my opinion, honestly, I think that Trump is going to be prevented from running for president in 2024 through government action, Department of Justice charging him with crimes or something like that. I guess we'll see what happens. But I think if that takes place, I honestly believe DeSantis is going to step in and run, and I think he's going to win if he does do that in 24. We'll see what happens. I think Flynn is preparing to back the horse that he thinks is going to win.
That's in a key political position. We really only have one governor, and that's Ron DeSantis, who's had made some very positive recent statements about COVID and masks and vaccines and such.
It's weird to me that he says only one governor, because Abbott of Texas is obviously doing everything he can to out extreme Ron DeSantis, basically. He's trying to make things as insane as humanly possible, even going as far as endorsing a party platform in Texas that stands for secession and all kinds of just absolutely unhinged stuff. intentionally setting out to be unhinged as possible, as unhinged as possible, to unhinge Ron DeSantis. But DeSantis is the one that Flynn is endorsing right now. Weird, right? It's like he's lining himself up to back the right horse. That's what it seems like to me.
Right? Where is the rest of these? Where are the rest of these? Well, yeah. I mean, next time you have Governor Abbott on, if he's ever been on, ask him if he's a member of the World Economic Forum, and see what he says. Ask him.
Okay, you can. Okay, the World Economic Forum names people that they like, or the people that they think are working for this thing or that thing to improve whatever. You have no real say. It's like being listed on the Forbes list of richest something or other. I don't know. It's not a list that you willingly get put on. And this exact thing actually happened to a guy named Dan Crenshaw. He's a far-right extremist, I think Texan congressman. Yeah, I guess I can't find it. Maybe I can insert it later. I don't know. Well, anyway, Dan Crenshaw was placed on the list of, influential congressmen or something by the World Economic Forum, and was attacked relentlessly for it. Relentlessly. Oh my God, did it get ugly. Despite the fact that he had no control over being placed on that list. And I'm assuming that's what happened with Greg Abbott. He was placed on a list of influential whatevers also. Did not end well for Crenshaw, and obviously it's being used against Abbott as well. That does not surprise me at all. But, Flynn knows how this works. He knows it's not a voluntary list. He's using this as an opportunity to demonize somebody that he doesn't like and promote somebody that he does like.
Ask him, and see what he says.
Well, just one little quick incision. I know, Clay, you're about to say something.
Here's
the deal, General. Forget about whether it's Q or not. If there is not some good people that have been working behind the scenes for a while, I will tell you there's about a 30 million militia army, redneck army, that if they became convinced that nobody else is working on it as well, there would be an uprising of the next level. And I think the only thing that...
Yeah, I think that's the goal on Flynn's part. I think that's what he's trying to make happen, is if people believe there wasn't a plan in place, then they're going to make it happen. I get the impression that's what he's trying to do.
That holds him back is the assumption that there are good people that have been working behind the scenes as well. And apart from that, we do go full revolution. And instead of going through why go through another wave of what we know is a killer vaccine, allowing them to kill again when we know what happens? There would be no reason for this militia not to rise up if nobody else is able to do anything. It's just all up to us.
I want to chime in one thing, and this is so powerful, okay? Because I want to give.
He's saying this like it's a bad thing. He's saying this like he worries, if blah blah blah. No, this is the plan. This is the idea. This is what I think Flynn is shooting for here.
3 examples that I know it sounds dark, but I just want to give you 3 praise reports here, Johnny and Steve. Okay, so Pastor Jackson Lawmeyer, I had nothing to do with this. He launches this website called pastors4trump.com. Pastors4trump.com. And I asked Pastor Jackson, I said, what motivated you to launch this? And he told me this. He said, Clay, I had a conversation with General Flynn in Tulsa, and General Flynn, again, President Trump talks to General Flynn, okay? Eric Trump is on the tour. Don Jr. is on the tour. So you talk about the people at the top, pretty much all of them are either on the tour or we talk to them on a daily basis.
Talking about on the Reawaken America tour, that's true. They do work with all of these people on a regular basis. Michael Flynn is pretty high up in the tour and talks to Trump and the whole 9 yards. So, yeah.
And Jackson he came back to me backstage, and I'm paraphrasing the conversation. I know Jackson's watching, but it was essentially, we are the plan. There is no other plan beyond just us. So I can't sit back and wait for the plan, because I just talked to a lot of the people who are supposed to have a plan, and they've let me know it's abundantly clear there isn't a plan. And if there is a plan, I have to make a plan. So he launched Pastors for Trump. He's waking up pastors. Another example is attorney Thomas Renz. He met General Flynn at one of these events, and Thomas Renz is famously exposing Fauci and what's inside these RNA-modifying nanotechnology shots. And he told
Okay, I have no idea what he means by exposing Fauci. I would prefer nobody get exposed. That sounds disgusting, especially not on film. Thanks anyways. Aside from that, this is something that Flynn's been saying for like a very long time. This is not like a new thing where he's basically denouncing QAnon, or at least saying that there is no plan. He's been saying that for a while. And I have a bunch of videos of him saying this and QAnon's reaction to it. And it's kind of interesting to me that Enlow didn't expect this. I mean, he listens to Flynn. He worships him practically as like a priest for all intents and purposes, as a deity, nearly. And he didn't expect this reaction. Really interesting.
He said it on Monday when at an event that General Flynn and I were at, but he also said it to me privately many times. He said, until I met all of the people at the tip of the spear, and they all told me, we got nothing. He thought that he was going to kind of sit back and see if some things would materialize, but now he is at the tip of the spear. So what I would just encourage people.
No, there is a plan. As in these people's plan, the people at the tip of the spear, like Flynn and Trump and all of the other, there is a plan on their part. The plan is to manipulate people into getting violent. And that entails convincing them there is no plan. That's how they get them to get violent, basically. So there is a plan, and this is part of it.
To do is Ephesians chapter 1 verses 16 through 18. I would read that till your brain explodes. Ephesians chapter 1 verse 16 through 18. And I would recognize to a certain extent you listening right there have to be the plan, because if you're not, this is how their plan works. I'll explain it to you very succinctly. The Great Reset involves putting RNA modifying nanotechnology under your skin.
Oh wow. Okay, well, now we're going off the rails here. What? Okay, go on.
And that connects, if you're not, this is how their plan works. I'll explain it to you very succinctly. The Great Reset involves putting RNA modifying nanotechnology under your skin, and that connects to 5G technology. And you can read the patents at timetofreeamerica.com. This technology was made by Charles Lieber, who got paid $50,000 a month by China, and he was financed by Jeffrey Epstein, and Bill Gates to create.
This is completely insane. This is unhinged stuff, dude. Oh my God, this is crazy.
RNA modifying nanotechnology that goes under the skin that allows to put like a geo tracker underneath your skin. Okay. So your body connects to 5G, both sends and receives signals. That's a fact. And it generates a media access code. If you have the shots underneath your skin, you're now pulsing out a media access code, like a Bluetooth signal. That's a fact. So
he's saying that if you got the vaccine, there has been a chip injected into your body. You have a chip under your skin if you receive the vaccine. And that chip is giving off 5G pulses. Are you kidding me? This is nutty stuff, dude.
That's step one, is they connect you to 5G. Second is they blanket the earth, okay, in 5G. And then they introduced this thing called the central bank digital currencies. So view it as like a digital concentration camp, where if I'm on your show and then I go to buy something, my money's turned off. And I can't buy something because I was on your show.
Okay, this is completely made up. I have no idea where he got any of this. It's just a cryptocurrency that they're discussing creating. They haven't even taken any steps to create it yet. This is all completely made up. Oh my God, it's like a massive fever dream that they live in. This is nuts.
If I listened to your show, my money's turned off. If I talk to anybody about your show, my money's turned off. And your phone is then turned into a listening device because of the TikTok apps that, many people are now hearing about this for the first time because of President Trump and Ronnie Jackson and other people that are exposing the TikTok app. But these are
okay. That's not why they're hearing about this, quote unquote. TikTok is actually, not fantastic. It is being used by the Chinese government to manipulate people by kind of swaying the type of content that people receive, basically. That's true. And in my opinion, we should force a sale of TikTok to an American buyer or whatever. I don't know why this hasn't happened already. We should ban any use of TikTok or downloading TikTok on government phones, and we should force a sale to a U.S. buyer. Or close it. Just get rid of it entirely, one or the other. I mean, this is proven unequivocally, without a shadow of a doubt, that the Chinese government is tweaking the algorithm to feed their children educational and interesting things, and feeding like the U.S. public or Western kids basically just garbage. That's what's happening right now with TikTok. That's been proven through studies and everything, and something should honestly be done about that. But, turning this into a massive conspiracy that involves like Joe Biden and all this other garbage, it's all completely made up.
Their words they're actually saying. And in Sri Lanka, this is already happening. And in China, it's been happening for some time. So we need to recognize right now that our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, has the power to overcome any adversary. But when the stories of Moses and the stories of Noah and the stories of Abraham, think about the work that Noah had to do. I don't know exactly how he built the ark without a power saw, but he had to actually.
He didn't. These are good questions. You're thinking. Really good. Good job there, Clay. Keep going down this road. Keep thinking. Keep processing. You must realize how ridiculous all of this is, right? I feel like I'm experiencing brain death listening to these four, right? This is absolutely nuts, dude. Is it just me, or is this whole make a new cryptocurrency thing like a repeat of all of those precious metal scams that are so popular with these guys? Well, Trump most definitely did create an NFT system, and that was definitely used as a scam, just like the precious metal thing, for sure. Now, they're claiming the U.S. government is creating a cryptocurrency. There's no hard evidence that the U.S. government is actually doing that. It appeared as though they were moving in that direction, which is something that, already exists in most countries. Like, most countries already have their own cryptocurrency. You're not, like, mandated to use it or any of that other garbage, but yeah. Here we are. I mean, these people just can't find their way back to reality, honestly.
So it might have seemed pretty crazy, but I believe in a way, a lot of your listeners out there, God's asking us to build that ark. He's asking us to part that sea, but we have to have faith to take action. And we have to do in the natural what we can do so that God and the supernatural can do what he can do. And
I have a good question along that line, too, because I was scurrying to get some of my final questions, and I ran out of time this morning, but I was asking someone, General Flynn, they said, well, General Flynn was warning people that the digital currency that you were just talking about, Clay, he was warning people that it would come, and they were kind of expounding on that. And I said, well, did he say we should fight and stop it? She said, I didn't listen to all of it, but I just heard him warn. So my question is an open end because I don't know what the conclusion was. Can we stop this digital currency by all of us doing the right thing?
Can you stop the U.S. government from creating a cryptocurrency? Why would you want to? Who cares if they create a cryptocurrency? Seriously, who cares? Why are you so obsessed with this?
Stop what's coming on the digital.
Well, I'll tell you so we have to have paths, okay? And I mean this. One of the paths that I'm personally I'm promoting, because I've seen it out there and it's been talked about for at least a year now. And one of those paths is I would love to see a groundswell of people asking to have Donald Trump be the next Speaker of the House.
Oh God, no. Yeah, that's a possibility. Apparently, to be Speaker of the House, you don't have to be what do you call it? You don't have to be a congressman or a politician of any sort. You can just be chosen. Now, unfortunately for Republicans, they have a very small percentage of House seats. They need every single vote to get somebody in as the Speaker of the House. And the votes leaned toward Kevin McCarthy when they held a vote recently. It was between Andy Biggs and Kevin McCarthy, I believe. There is absolutely no chance that Trump is going to become the Speaker of the House, or very little chance. I just don't see it. I'm sorry. It's so far-fetched and unlikely. I don't sit up at night worrying that it's going to happen. I mean, technically they do have the votes for it, but I think Trump is not liked enough that it's just not going to happen, first of all. And second, Trump hasn't been pushing for it himself either. I don't think Trump wants to settle for Speaker of the House. I think he wants the presidency.
I love that.
I would love that. I would love it. It's so counter to what is the norm, and that can absolutely happen. It's constitutionally can happen.
He's correct. It could. Absolutely, it could. But Trump hasn't been pushing for it. I don't think Trump has even mentioned it, for that matter. If Trump made a huge push for it, maybe. But he hasn't, so.
We only got a couple of weeks. I mean, I don't know whether Trump would want the job or not, but I think that, but it absolutely can happen. The founders, when they created this sort of stipulation, they created this condition within our Constitution. I didn't talk to them, but I've read a lot about what they've written about and why they wrote about it. But they wrote about it. I think they created this condition in order for us to be able to have a time in our country where they knew that we may be in a desperate place, because we're in a desperate place. We need to have something so different and so up, like raising up, right? And I'm almost at a loss for words for it, because we cannot have. I mean, maybe it's going to be Kevin McCarthy. Nothing will get done.
That's what it's looking like. It's going to be Kevin McCarthy. Again, they held an internal vote recently, and that internal vote determined that McCarthy got the vast majority of votes. When he says nothing's going to be done, what could be done? There's nothing that they could do. They only hold a narrow majority in the House of like a few seats, I think. And they don't hold the Senate at all. What could be done? Nothing. They can hold the House, they can push bills through, they can impeach, but none of those things will go anywhere. And also, if they impeach Biden, it's going to end badly for them. Look at what happened with impeaching Trump. It helped him. It boosted his poll numbers when he was impeached and it went to the floor of the Senate and he was exonerated, or whatever you call it. He was acquitted or whatever. I don't know what the exact term is. He was acquitted on the floor of the Senate. That helped him, even though he was guilty. It helped him. So for that reason, I don't believe they're going to impeach Biden, though they have the capability to do so, because they know that it would help him in the polls when he inevitably is not convicted. There's almost nothing that they can actually do outside of that. They can't. They can pass bills, but the bills would die on the floor of the Senate. There's just nothing that can be done, period. And honestly, Donald Trump doesn't even know how to be Speaker of the House. Why would Trump want to be Speaker? He can't do anything. He has no power, and he doesn't even know how to use the power if he had it. There's no point.
And I don't know whether, again, I don't know whether or not he would want to do it. It's not something I've ever asked him about. But I do believe that we need somebody in that role that will stare and is fearless enough to stare into the face of Satan himself and call Satan out and rip the dark heart of Satan out if necessary, from what sits inside of that Oval Office right now, or inside of that White House. I mean, that's what we need. And we need to be.
He's using religious language, rip the dark heart out and all that. So it's all religious language, and that's very intentional.
Be able to call it out. We need to be able to call it out. And Donald Trump, he does a lot from where his home is in Mar-a-Lago, but actually from that position of authority, that position of power. And remember, it's the number 3 to the president, vice president, and then the.
Yeah, it's the line of succession. So if the president died tomorrow, then the vice president would become the president, which is Kamala Harris. If the vice president and the president both died tomorrow, then the Speaker of the House would be next in line to take the presidency. For that reason, being in the line of succession, those three people are never in the same room at the same time, practically ever. I mean, it does happen. It's just not very common. They try to keep them separate. In fact, they try to keep the president and the vice president separate, just in case. But yeah, that's true that they are in the line of succession.
Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House.
So that's number one. The second thing is it could reset the tone of our government. We could reset the tone of our government. And frankly, because he's already announced that he's going to run for president, he can still run for president from the speakership. And, you know, and just personally, I'd love to see him sitting behind Joe Biden under the Capitol dome when Joe Biden's giving a State of the Union, and sit there and, you know, and do one of these things, you know, do one of these things, just like Nancy Pelosi did, right?
Right, Nancy Pelosi. After Donald Trump gave a State of the Union speech, I believe, Nancy Pelosi had the speech, and when he was finished reading the speech, she tore it in half. I mean, it wasn't any use anyways. It was more of a symbolic gesture or whatever, but that's what he's referring to here. She tore his speech in half when he was done with it. Okay.
Love that.
So I mean, that to me is so, you know, when you think about warfare, and you think about maneuver, and, you know, force on force, you know, the horses running against each other, the troops, you know, with their bows and arrows and their rifles, and the, you know, we're not there. We're not there. We need to have some type of end around. We need to have a different path to be able to take this country back at that level. And he can talk about all the things that he talks about every day: election integrity, right, and the security of our elections.
Right.
He can talk about all the stuff that we've just talked about for the last 55 minutes here on your show. And
that's good.
This, you know, because this is we are in a form of warfare right now, and it's a war of narratives. It's an information war. It's a war of deception. It's a war of ideas, and it's a war of lies, flat out lies.
Yeah, I suppose I could agree with him on that one. Absolutely. I mean, he's the one doing the lying, but okay. And as a matter of fact, Johnny Enlow even said that earlier. Like, Michael Flynn may not be telling the whole truth. He's just telling what the troops need to hear in that moment, basically, is what he said, right?
I mean, I am, you know, I was, while I was in the military, I was always accused by a lot of different people, you know, jokingly, that I was one of the worst intel officers because, you know, intel you're supposed to protect and keep secret. Well, not on the battlefield. If you withhold intelligence on the battlefield, people are going to die.
Okay, so is Flynn saying that he was known as somebody who spread intelligence out where it shouldn't be? When you're, okay, first of all, Flynn was never on a battlefield, was he? I think Flynn was just like in control of troops, not actually on a battlefield. He didn't need to spread intel or people would die or whatever other nonsense. If you spread some intel, then people will die if some intel is given out. And like I said earlier, like this is probably at like part 2 or something like that, part 3 maybe, but in the beginning I talked about like Michael Flynn and what the deal is with the guy, what he's most famous for. In 2014 and 2015, Russia invaded Crimea in Ukraine and took it over, and Obama placed sanctions on Russia for doing so. And Flynn communicated with Russia and said, I've talked to Donald Trump, and he told me when he takes office, he's going to lift those sanctions. So don't do anything. Don't, you know, retaliate against the U.S. or anything like that. Don't say a word. Wait for Trump to take office, and then do what you will do depending on what happens next. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. Donald Trump took office 2016, and they lifted the sanctions. Trump lifted the sanctions against Russia for attacking Crimea. That was Michael Flynn directly undermining the authority of the President of the United States. That is treason as far as I'm concerned. I think technically treason has to be like giving aid or comfort to an enemy, and I don't think Russia was an enemy of the U.S. at the time. I don't think they're an enemy now. they're considered like an adversarial country or something like that. So technically maybe not treason, but in spirit it is. It's treason. That's what Michael Flynn is. He's a traitor to the United States government as far as I'm concerned. So I don't want to hear any of this garbage about him being like a true patriot or caring what happens to the country or any of that. Not to mention all the stuff he did to assist Turkey while working against the United States government. I haven't even brought that up yet.
That was one of the worst intel officers because,
So here he's talking about how he's a bad intel officer because he tells people things. Yeah, I know. You were charged for that. You were charged for giving intel to adversaries. Absolutely. And that there's no excuse for that. None whatsoever. He's a traitor.
Intel you're supposed to protect and keep secret. Well, not on the battlefield. If you withhold intelligence on the battlefield, people are going to die. So I used to relentlessly pursue anybody who was trying to protect their little secret, because if it caused the death of one soldier, I would crush him. I wanted it to be exposed, and that
is not how it happened. He's like portraying himself to be some kind of a hero when he was charged for undermining the U.S. government, for undermining the president of the United States. He's charged for this stuff and sentenced. And Donald Trump came in and pardoned him. Just disgusting. He's a terrible person. Terrible.
That's my, where I'm at now. I mean, so those days are experiential for me, but they gave me great experience, and they gave me great judgment and great discernment. And in the last 5 or 6 years, I've lived 5 or 6 lifetimes. So now I'm living in a different world. And frankly, I've been to Africa, and God knows they need wells in Africa. But you know what?
The reason he's mentioning that is because I think at the beginning of this, show, Steve Schultz was promoting a charity that he's working with to dig wells in Uganda for the poor or something. I don't know.
We need a light to shine in America. And that light is going to shine in America if and only if the Christian community stands up and starts to profess to God Almighty that, and outside just the biblical prophecies, but they need to start to profess to those leaders that are leading us down a path of depravity and corruption that will cause us to all go over the cliff together and right straight into the abyss.
So good. But in general, anytime you want to come back on and help the groundswell for Trump to become Speaker of the House, it's a standing invitation. You can come on anytime you want to promote that.
Right.
Okay, it's a little late for that. That's going to be happening soon, like the vote for the Speaker of the House or whatever. And Trump has not been pushing for that. It's not going to happen. But okay.
Johnny, did you have another question before we close out here?
I think we're good. I think we're good. I would start another round of some other things, but I think.
Yeah, I mean, we can go if you have something.
The idea.
Steve, I want to interject one thing here.
Go ahead.
Anybody, if you go to timetofreeamerica.com, if you're listening right now, and you go to timetofreeamerica.com and you come join us in Nashville on January 20th and 21st, you're going to hear.
Oh, he's going to shout out his weird little conference or whatever. Okay.
Hear people like Amanda Grace. You're going to hear some of these prophetic voices that have a very inspiring message. You're going to have kind of an intense message from a guy like Pastor Greg Locke. You're going to hear
yeah, Greg Locke actually hosted the Reawaken America tour not too long ago. He's very involved with these people, and it's just disturbing stuff, dude. All of it. It's just weird.
Message of almost a quiet, it's almost a desperation for the Patriots to team up with him and Eric Trump. I mean, Eric Trump is begging people, asking the Patriots to get involved on a local level. You're going to hear people like Mike Lindell talk about election fraud. You're going to hear Jim Brewer expose.
Yeah, he's just shouting out his stupid, weird little conference or whatever. Notice he brought out Jim Brewer, though. Jim Brewer, I've done a whole bit on Jim Brewer, and Brewer actually responded to me directly on his podcast, invited me on to talk to him on his podcast and everything. I decided not to, because I don't know. I'm not very good at debates. It's probably a standing invitation, though. I could probably go on anytime, but I just don't like doing debates personally. I feel like I'm not very good at them, and I would be doing an injustice if I went on and tried to debate him because I'm not good at it. I would be risking making a huge mess out of things.
The corruption of Hollywood, but you're going to hear 71 speakers, and all of them fear God and nobody else. And then we have a baptism on Friday night. So if you need to recalibrate and get right with God, we have an incredible baptism service on Friday night. Saturday, we have a meet and greet, wonderful event. So again, you can get those tickets at timetofreeamerica.com. And the reason why General Flynn and I let people name their price for these events at timetofreeamerica.com is because we don't want anybody to be unable to afford to hear this truth directly from the people that are in the fight. And I appreciate you guys allowing General Flynn to share some tough words, but I hope you hear his resolve. He's trying to give people a message of reality. And I really do appreciate that because I've seen it.
Well, he actually just shredded Johnny Enlow for no reason. He didn't have to be like that. He didn't have to be a jerk. He could have been nicer, you know? But okay.
Wake up a lot of people that were frankly elected officials that thought someone else was going to deal with it. And General Flynn has woken them up. And I appreciate him giving us the tough message that sometimes I don't want to hear, but it's always been powerful for me and my family.
Yeah.
And people come up to me every day, to include today, come up to me every day, Steve, and tell me, thank you for what I heard you say. I am now doing X in my community or Y in my community. I'm running for something. I'm participating. I mean, you know, that makes me feel good.
Yeah,
that's totally good. General, you know, before we close, I want you to talk about your book. You've got a new book out, don't you?
Okay, that's going to be a hard pass for me. So yeah, that's the end of Flynn's appearance on this show. Absolutely bizarre stuff, man. I don't know. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments. Let me know if you want to see more stuff like this. I think it's fascinating to kind of get a glimpse into Michael Flynn's tactics into this whole movement and denying QAnon like that. That is absolutely crazy. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, check me out on Patreon. And let me know if you want to see more stuff like this in the comments. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.